The arena hovered silently above a dead, cratered planet, an enormous structure of gleaming metal and energy fields that stretched farther than the eye could see. Millions of alien eyes watched from floating stands, their shapes and forms impossible to comprehend. Tentacles, translucent wings, multifaceted eyes, all suspended in zero gravity as the arena pulsed with anticipation. This was the crucible of the galaxy's mightiest warriors, where champions spent decades, or even lifetimes, preparing for the ultimate test. The announcer's voice, deep and resonant, boomed across the anti-gravity stands. "Earth, send your champion. Let us witness if your species is worthy of this arena." A murmur ran through the alien spectators, a mixture of amusement and disbelief. "Earth, primitive humans," hissed a shimmering Serac warrior, its four arms gesturing in derision. "They won't last an hour." And yet, somewhere deep in the human sector of the arena, a single figure stepped forward. Not armored, not glowing with energy, not equipped with plasma or psychic shields. Just a man, Jackson Reeve. The crowd barely registered him at first. He was unremarkable in appearance, short, lean, with a determined glint in his eyes, but that calmness, that unshakable focus, drew attention like gravity itself. A few alien champions exchanged nervous glances. There was something in that human's stride that defied expectation, a quiet certainty that unsettled even the most battle-hardened veterans. The announcer continued, voice echoing with electric resonance. "Do not be deceived by appearances. Your human has a chance, but will it be enough?" Suddenly, the arena's floor shifted, rising in platforms and pits, energy barriers flaring into existence around each competitor. Lava-like molten pools bubbled, and arcs of electricity danced across the metallic walls, reflecting in the hundreds of alien eyes watching. It was a trap, a test designed to push champions beyond strength alone, to challenge strategy, speed, and adaptability. Jackson paused at the edge of the platform, surveying the arena. His gaze didn't waver as the Vorax champion, a hulking four-armed creature taller than two humans stacked, flexed its massive fists. Its armor shimmered in alien glyphs of power, and every muscle coiled with years of training. Beside it, a Serac glider hovered, electric spears crackling in its hands, while a telepathic zebra hovered invisibly at the far end, sending out psychic ripples that could confuse even the sharpest minds. For decades, each champion had honed every skill, rehearsed every motion, prepared for every possibility. But Jackson hadn't. He had only hours of preparation, training gleaned from instinct, observation, and raw human adaptability. And yet, in the stillness of that moment, he felt no fear, only focus. The crowd fell silent. Even the announcer seemed to pause, sensing the unusual tension radiating from the human. Here was a creature the galaxy had dismissed as weak, standing unarmed against beings who could crush planets with a thought. Then, with a calm breath, Jackson stepped forward. The floor beneath him hummed with energy, and the first test began, a wave of kinetic force rising toward him, designed to knock the competitors into molten pits. Around him, alien champions tensed, ready to demonstrate the results of years, decades, lifetimes of preparation. Jackson moved, not in panic, not in hesitation, but in precise, deliberate motion. Every step calculated, every dodge instinctive, yet somehow elegant. The arena itself seemed to bend around him, the barriers and traps becoming extensions of his own body. For the first time, a ripple of unease passed through the stands. Could it be? Could a human survive, and not just survive, but perhaps dominate? The crowd had barely recovered from the shock of Jackson Reeve stepping onto the arena floor when the first whispers of disbelief spread like wildfire. Alien champions had spent decades perfecting their movements, honing their strength, mastering strategy. And now, a human, ordinary, unarmored, unremarkable, stood before them with nothing but calm determination. The arena trembled as the first test began. A hulking Vorax champion, muscles rippling beneath its engraved alien armor, slammed its fists onto the floor. The impact sent shockwaves across the platforms, molten pits splashing with molten rock and sparks. The Vorax towered over Jackson, a terrifying monument of raw power that had taken years to shape. Its eyes glowed with predatory hunger, its multiple arms coiled like spring-loaded pistons, ready to crush anything in reach. Around them, other champions floated in anticipation. A Serac warrior hovered on anti-gravity gliders, electric spears crackling in its hands. The telepathic Zevra hovered in invisible stealth, sending psychic ripples to probe Jackson's mind. Even the arena itself seemed to pulse in recognition of the impending clash, barriers rising and falling like metallic tides, energy traps activating with deadly precision. The crowd held its collective breath. Even the announcer's booming voice faltered for a fraction of a second. "Behold, Earth's champion." Jackson's eyes never wavered. He surveyed the arena, noting the patterns in the floor, the rhythm of the energy pulses, the trajectory of molten pits. Years of training had forged these aliens into living weapons, but Jackson had something they couldn't calculate: unpredictability. The Vorax roared and charged. The sound shook the arena, a vibration so deep it seemed to rattle the bones of every spectator. With 4 massive arms swinging in perfect coordination, the creature aimed to crush the human in a single strike. And then Jackson moved. Not with brute force, not with frantic panic, but with precise, fluid motion. He leaped, twisted, and rolled in a series of movements that seemed almost instinctive, barely clearing the Vorax's fists. Sparks flew, molten rock hissed as he narrowly avoided the traps, and the crowd gasped in unison. Every dodge was perfect, every movement deliberate, yet executed with the natural ease of someone born to adapt. The Vorax paused, confused. Decades of combat experience were failing against a human who hadn't even trained in the same way. Jackson began to use the arena itself, barriers, energy pulses, and even the molten pits, as tools. He redirected the force of a shockwave, causing the Vorax to stumble. A swift sidestep sent one of its massive fists crashing into an energy barrier instead of his body, the barrier flaring with overcharge. Even the Serac warrior adjusted, realizing that brute force and speed alone might not be enough. The Zevra's psychic probes flickered uncertainly as Jackson's unpredictable patterns disrupted her telepathic predictions. The arena, alive with energy and anticipation, seemed to bend to Jackson's will. Every hazard turned into an advantage. A ripple of fear spread through the stands. What kind of human was this? One who could survive where others would die? One who could turn traps and overwhelming power into allies? Jackson paused for a breath, calm, unshaken, and ready. Around him, alien champions exchanged nervous glances, their confidence cracking under the weight of the unexpected. The audience, millions of eyes from thousands of worlds, was silent, captivated by the audacity and skill of a single human. For the first time, the galaxy realized human potential could not be measured in decades of preparation. It was something else entirely, something instinctive, adaptable, and unstoppable. The arena floor trembled under the weight of the Vorax's fury. Every step the creature took sent vibrations shivering through the platforms, molten pits bubbling with volatile energy. Years of preparation had forged this champion into a living weapon, muscles honed to perfection, reflexes sharpened to a lethal edge. And yet, Jackson Reeves stood unflinching, calm, his eyes fixed on the hulking 4-armed terror. The crowd's murmur rose to a roar. Alien spectators leaned forward, their many eyes widening in disbelief. This was the test that should have crushed a human in moments, a pure measure of raw strength. And yet, Jackson did not back down. The Vorax charged. Its arms moved in perfect synchronized arcs, fists capable of crushing stone and bone alike. Lava erupted from a nearby pit as it struck the floor, molten rivers racing toward Jackson in glowing torrents. The human's heart pounded, but his mind was clear. This wasn't a fight of power. It was a fight of perception, reaction, and instinct. He dodged. One step to the side, a roll under a crushing blow, a leap over a molten wave. Sparks showered from the impact points as the Vorax's fists slammed into the platform, sending shards of superheated metal and rock into the air. Each movement Jackson made was fluid, almost effortless, yet precise beyond calculation. Every dodge, every pivot, every sidestep was a silent declaration. Raw strength alone would not define this fight. The Vorax roared again, a deep, resonating sound that vibrated through the arena, echoing in the stands. Years of training surged through the creature as it unleashed a devastating overhead strike, its fist aimed directly at Jackson's head. Time seemed to slow. Jackson read the motion in a heartbeat, letting the momentum of the Vorax's strike carry it past him. Then, instinctively, he grabbed a chunk of debris from the shattered platform. Using leverage and momentum, he sent it spinning into the Vorax's knee joint. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the creature stumbled, momentarily off balance. Gasps echoed from the crowd. No human should have had the speed, precision, or understanding to manipulate the arena so effectively. The alien champions began to murmur among themselves. This human wasn't just surviving, he was turning the Vorax's strength against itself. Each missed blow, each redirected attack, each use of the arena's hazards chipped away at the centuries of assumed superiority. But the Vorax was far from defeated. It roared, a sound like a planetary quake, and slammed its fists down in a double strike. The floor shook violently, molten lava rising like geysers beneath them. Jackson barely leaped clear, his movements measured yet instinctive, his eyes scanning, calculating. With a swift pivot, he used the force of the Vorax's punch against it again, sending the creature stumbling toward the edge of a collapsing platform. A hush fell over the arena. The champions, the spectators, even the announcer. Everyone realized the impossible. This human was surviving where others would have been pulverized in minutes. The Vorax lunged one last time, desperation in its glowing eyes, but Jackson was ready. A feint, a sidestep, and the giant's momentum hurled it into a containment barrier, energy flaring violently around it as it crashed with a deafening roar. Jackson didn't celebrate. He merely stood, breathing evenly, surveying the arena with the calm of someone who had already anticipated every possible outcome. Around him, the alien champion's confidence faltered. Their years of training, their decades of preparation, had not accounted for a human's adaptability, ingenuity, and raw instinct. The crowd erupted into chaos, some in awe, some in disbelief, all captivated. The lesson was clear. Strength alone was no match for intellect, intuition, and fearless action. The arena had barely quieted from Jackson's stunning victory over the Vorax when the next challenge emerged. From the shadowed ceiling of the colossal structure, thousands of glimmering drones descended, their metallic bodies reflecting the harsh arena lights. Each drone was armed with energy blades, micro-missiles, and sensor arrays capable of predicting movement before it occurred. The announcer's voice cut through the tense silence. Endurance, adaptability, strategy. Let us see if the human can survive what our champions have trained lifetimes to endure. The drones swarmed with terrifying precision, a single, coordinated organism moving faster than the eye could follow. Alien champions braced themselves, some activating energy shields, others launching offensive countermeasures. Jackson, however, took only a measured step forward, eyes scanning the swarm. The first wave struck. Sparks flew, energy rippled through the air, and molten pits flared in the heat of explosive micro-missiles. Jackson rolled under a slicing blade, dodged a torrent of tiny projectiles, and leapt across a collapsing platform. Each movement was precise, fluid, almost too fast for the spectators to track. The crowd erupted in awe. Alien spectators, so used to watching carefully honed champions fight, couldn't comprehend what they were witnessing. One human, unarmed and unprotected, was surviving a swarm that could annihilate trained alien soldiers in minutes. Jackson's eyes darted across the arena. The drones moved as one, but their coordination depended on centralized signals. A pattern emerged, a rhythm in their movement. He noticed gaps, fractions of a second where the swarm adjusted, where momentum created openings. With a calculated sprint, he exploited them, using debris from shattered platforms as shields, creating distractions and redirecting the drones into each other. An electric blade swept past his shoulder, scorching the floor. Jackson ducked, rolled, and vaulted off a broken pillar, sending a cascade of molten metal onto approaching drones. Sparks erupted, and the swarm faltered, briefly confused by his unpredictable maneuvers. The alien champions began whispering, eyes wide with disbelief. This human didn't just survive, he was controlling the swarm's chaos, bending it to his advantage. He wasn't stronger than the drones, he was smarter, faster, more adaptable. The Zevra, hovering invisibly at the far end, attempted to psychic probe Jackson's mind. Waves of telepathic pressure crashed toward him, designed to destabilize focus and force hesitation. Jackson's body twisted, sidestepping and ducking instinctively, and he hurled a fragment of a shattered energy conduit. It struck a nearby drone, sending sparks cascading across the swarm, creating a chain reaction. Several drones collided, and the swarm momentarily broke formation. The arena itself seemed to pulse with Jackson's ingenuity. Energy barriers, molten pits, and collapsing platforms became extensions of his strategy, not obstacles. Each dodge, each diversion, each calculated use of momentum showcased an instinctive intelligence that no alien champion had anticipated. The swarm recalibrated, faster, more aggressive, sensing the humans' defiance. The arena lights dimmed, warning of an impending lethal strike. Thousands of drones converged simultaneously, blades spinning, missiles arcing toward him. Time seemed to stretch. The crowd leaned forward, silent, as if holding its breath. Jackson's mind worked instinctively. With a precise leap, he vaulted over a molten pit, rolled under a descending blade, and launched himself from a broken platform into the heart of the swarm. Energy barriers exploded, drones collided, and the swarm scattered in chaotic waves, many crashing into molten pits, many colliding with each other, unable to track the unpredictable human. When the dust and sparks cleared, Jackson stood at the center of the arena. His uniform scorched, his hands bleeding slightly, but his eyes calm and focused. The swarm was neutralized. Alien champions exchanged stunned looks. Spectators whispered in awe and fear. For the first time, the galaxy began to see the terrifying truth. Human ingenuity was not limited by training, numbers, or expectation. Humanity thrived in chaos. The arena shifted. The molten pits vanished, the drones scattered, and in their place rose walls of shifting light. Tall, glowing panels that pulsated with a rhythm both alien and hypnotic. Jackson paused, sensing immediately that this was no ordinary physical challenge. The air thrummed with psychic energy, subtle at first, then growing like a storm on the horizon. The announcer's voice, now tinged with a thrill of malice, echoed through the arena. Strength and strategy are mere shadows before the mind. Let us see if the human can endure the psychic maze. A trial our champions survive only after years of mental conditioning. As Jackson stepped forward, the walls shifted. Hallways bent impossibly. Corridors twisted in Escher-like angles. Floors stretching and contracting as if alive. From every surface, whispers, alien, incomprehensible, seductive, pushed at his thoughts. Memories not his own flickered at the edge of his mind. Victories, failures, fears, and regrets. The maze reached into his psyche, probing for hesitation, for doubt, for weakness. He faltered for an instant, and the walls reacted, narrowing around him, forcing him to take leaps over glowing gaps. A floor panel collapsed beneath him, revealing a pit of crackling psychic energy. Jackson rolled, barely catching himself, breathing sharply but with focus. The Zevra appeared, its psychic presence thick and suffocating. Waves of suggestion, hallucinations, and false paths assaulted Jackson's senses. He saw visions of falling endlessly, of alien champions closing in, of the crowd laughing in mockery. His heart raced, but he recognized the illusions for what they were. They were patterns, like the drone swarm, like the Vorax's attacks, calculable, predictable, and manipulable. Jackson moved, slow at first, observing the rhythm of the walls, noting the pulses of psychic energy. Each step became deliberate. Each hesitation he resisted hardened his mind, as though his determination itself could shape the maze. One panel shifted, revealing a trap corridor lined with psychic blades, intangible yet capable of slicing the mind's focus. Jackson sprinted, twisting his body in midair, letting momentum carry him safely through, the echoes of alien thought brushing his consciousness, but failing to ensnare it. The alien champions whispered in awe. Some tried to predict his path using telepathy, some attempted to manipulate the maze themselves. But the human defied expectation. He wasn't trying to read the maze. He was observing it, feeling its flow, moving intuitively, letting it guide him, even as he remained entirely in control of himself. Suddenly, the walls closed, and a vision engulfed him. An endless field of alien observers, their eyes accusing, their voices a chorus of doubt. Panic surged, but Jackson steadied his breath, anchoring himself to the present. The illusions fragmented, the field dissolving into nothing as he realized that fear was the maze's true weapon. He pivoted, taking a sharp turn that seemed counterintuitive. The walls followed, attempting to trap him, but his momentum carried him through a narrow passage no alien champion had ever survived. The floor beneath him glowed, signaling the maze's core. He sprinted, each step a defiance, and with a final leap, he burst through the energy barrier at the maze's center. The arena went silent. Jackson stood, sweating, bruised but unbroken. The psychic storm subsided, walls retracting, whispers fading. Alien champions stared in disbelief. The human mind, adaptable, fearless, and unbound by their psychic conventions, had survived where their best could not. The arena walls dissolved, leaving Jackson standing at the edge of a vast, chaotic landscape. The air was thick with ozone, and the ground beneath him shifted unpredictably. One moment solid, the next molten or frozen. Thunder crackled overhead, lightning splitting the sky in jagged white lines. Water surged from hidden channels, forming rapids that threatened to sweep him away. Flames erupted from fissures in the ground. Tornadoes of wind twisted violently, tearing debris into deadly projectiles. The announcer's voice boomed, distant yet omnipresent. "Welcome to the elemental gauntlet. Master these forces, and survive where our champions have failed for decades. Fail, and you are lost." Jackson's pulse quickened, but his expression remained calm, focused. The arena was designed to break creatures stronger, faster, and more experienced than him. The elements themselves were weapons, each one capable of ending his life in seconds. A pillar of flame erupted near him, hissing and spitting molten shards. Jackson dove sideways, rolling to avoid the scalding heat, landing just as a blast of icy water swept the arena, freezing the molten debris into jagged shards. He sprang over the sharp obstacles, landing on a shifting platform that tilted under his weight. Wind tore at his clothing, threatening to throw him off balance, but he adjusted instantly, letting momentum work with him instead of against him. Lightning struck the ground nearby, splitting a rock formation and sending chunks hurtling toward him. Jackson ducked, then propelled himself into a wall of swirling wind, using the vortex as a shield to redirect the debris safely past him. Each elemental hazard required a split-second judgment, a calculated risk, and Jackson thrived in the chaos. The alien champions observed silently, eyes widening with disbelief. No human should survive such an arena. Their own species had spent lifetimes training for mastery over a single element, yet here was one human dancing through fire, ice, water, and wind as if guided by instinct alone. A geyser of molten rock exploded beneath Jackson, forcing him to leap across a chasm. As he landed, the floor fractured again, and a torrent of water surged upward, carrying him along like a raging river. He rolled with the current, smashing into a wall of jagged ice just as fire erupted from below. Sparks and steam hissed around him, but he emerged unscathed, breathing steadily. The arena continued to punish him relentlessly. Tornadoes collided, forming unpredictable crosswinds. Lightning bolts struck erratically, leaving trails of scorched earth. Molten rivers surged and froze alternately, creating a constantly shifting terrain. Every step was a puzzle, every breath a test of focus and timing. Yet Jackson adapted, anticipating patterns, using each element against the next. At the climax, a massive elemental convergence formed at the center, a swirling vortex of fire, ice, water, and wind. Jackson sprinted toward it, leaping over molten rivers, sliding under icy spikes, and dodging lightning strikes. Time slowed. With precise timing, he vaulted through the eye of the storm, letting the forces collide behind him in a cataclysmic eruption. The arena fell silent. Smoke and steam curled into the air, revealing Jackson standing at the center, bruised but unbroken. Alien champions whispered, shocked beyond comprehension. The human had not just survived. He had turned chaos into his advantage, mastering an arena that would have annihilated the best of their species. The elemental chaos vanished in an instant, replaced by an arena of stark brilliance. Towering columns of crystal reflected light in every direction, casting shifting rainbows across the floor. The air was thick with anticipation. Alien spectators leaned forward, murmuring in disbelief. Even the announcer's voice trembled with excitement. "And now, the final trial," it intoned. "The human faces the grand champion, Vorin, the undefeated, the living legend of this galaxy's combat history." From the shadows emerged Vorin. 6 meters of scaled muscle, eyes glowing like molten gold, claws that could rend steel, and an aura that radiated raw, predatory power. The ground trembled with each step he took. The alien champions who had tried and failed before trembled at a distance. Jackson squared his shoulders, studying the creature carefully. There was no trick, no environmental crutch this time. This was raw combat, pure skill versus pure instinct. The crowd fell silent, sensing that history itself was being rewritten. Vorin charged. In a blur, he closed the distance, claws slashing through the air with lethal precision. Jackson sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a blow that would have shredded a normal being. Sparks flew as claws met crystal pillars, sending shards scattering across the arena. The Grand Champion was fast, brutal, and cunning, analyzing Jackson's every move, every hesitation. Yet Jackson moved with instinctive fluidity, rolling, ducking, and countering in ways that no one, not even the most skilled alien combatant, could predict. He used Vorin's momentum against him, leaping off the walls, redirecting strikes, and striking weak points with pinpoint precision. Vorin roared, the sound rattling crystal and bone alike. The Grand Champion was relentless, pushing Jackson to his physical limits. But Jackson didn't fight with sheer strength. He fought with strategy, improvisation, and fearlessness. Each attack was a calculation, each dodge a test of timing and perception. The arena itself became part of the battle. Crystal pillars shattered underfoot, creating temporary cover and obstacles. Light refracted across the floor, blinding and dazzling. Jackson moved through this chaos, weaving between destruction, turning the environment into an extension of his reflexes. A powerful swipe from Vorin sent Jackson tumbling toward a jagged edge. Time slowed. With a twist, he vaulted over the gap, using the momentum to launch a counterstrike that clipped the champion's shoulder. Vorin roared in shock. The first mark of defeat, subtle but undeniable, appeared across his scales. The crowd gasped. Alien champions froze. For the first time in millennia, the Grand Champion faced a force he could not dominate through sheer strength or experience. Jackson's audacity, adaptability, and calm in the face of pure power were rewriting the rules of combat. Vorin lunged again, claws flashing like lightning, but Jackson pivoted mid-air, ducked under a spinning strike, and landed behind him. He struck again, not to kill, but to destabilize, to force Vorin to adapt. Each precise strike chipped away at the legend's aura of invincibility. Finally, with a final, perfectly timed feint, Jackson sidestepped a devastating blow. Vorin stumbled, unbalanced, and fell to one knee. The arena went silent. Jackson stood, chest heaving, bruised but upright. The human had done what no champion could. He had outmatched the ultimate predator of the galaxy, not with strength, but with skill, intuition, and indomitable will. Silence blanketed the arena. Vorin, the Grand Champion, slowly rose, eyes wide, not with hatred but with awe. Jackson's chest heaved, sweat and bruises marking the culmination of trials that no being in the galaxy had survived in a single lifetime. The alien spectators, once jeering, once skeptical, stood frozen, witnessing history unfold before them. The announcer's voice trembled with disbelief and admiration. Never, never has a human, never has anyone, achieved what this being has accomplished in mere hours. Jackson looked around, taking in the towering crystals, the fractured pillars, the marks of fire, ice, wind, and psychic energy that scarred the arena. He had faced swarms of drones, mind-bending mazes, elemental cataclysms, and a living legend of combat. He had survived, adapted, and prevailed. Humanity had not only endured, it had triumphed in a way the galaxy had not anticipated. Vorin approached, claws lowered in respect. "You are unlike anything we have ever seen," the champion rumbled, voice deep and resonant. "You do not fight as we do. You think, adapt, overcome. Your species is remarkable." Jackson nodded, his gaze calm but piercing. "We are more than you expect. Don't underestimate humanity again." The alien champions whispered among themselves. The galaxy had always assumed humans were primitive, untrained, and weak. They had underestimated speed, strategy, and resilience, the elements that made humanity extraordinary. For the first time, a clear message was broadcast across every corner of the arena, and into the galaxies beyond, humans were not to be taken lightly. The arena itself seemed to respond, light pulsing across the crystal pillars, as if acknowledging the human victory. The elements of fire, water, wind, and ice, the trials meant to destroy, now stood as a testament to what determination, adaptability, and courage could overcome. Jackson's victory was not just personal, it was symbolic. Humanity had faced the impossible and emerged unbroken. As the alien crowds slowly erupted into a mix of applause and stunned silence, Jackson stood at the center, looking outward. The galaxy would remember this day. Stories of this trial would echo through star systems, not as tales of conquest or intimidation, but as a reminder. Humanity thrived in adversity, adapted to chaos, and achieved what others deemed impossible. The grand champion stepped back, bowing slightly in deference. Your species has earned respect beyond measure. I will tell others of this day. Jackson smiled faintly, not with arrogance, but with the quiet assurance of one who knows his people's worth. Respect earned is respect deserved. We only ask that you remember us, not for fear, but for what we can achieve when pushed beyond limits. The announcer's final words rang through the arena, heavy with shock and reverence. Let it be known across the stars, one human has surpassed the galaxy's greatest champions, in hours where others required lifetimes. Witness the legacy of humanity. And so, Jackson walked from the arena, bruised and battered, yet unbroken. His story would be told across planets, from the highest councils of alien civilizations to the lowest outposts of distant worlds. Humanity's strength was no longer a whisper in the void, it was a declaration.